Welcome to This Wasn't on the Test, the podcast where knowledge meets humor in the most unexpected ways. Join Dr. Jake and Dr. Kayla, a couple with doctorates in their respective fields, and their sister Kelsey, who may not have a PhD but sure knows how to keep things light with her quick humor and relatable take on the world. Whether you're a scholar or just a curious mind, this trio will make you laugh, think, and you might even learn something new. Tune in to find out why this wasn't on the test. Hello, welcome back to This Wasn't on the Test. I'm Kelsey. I'm here with my brother, Dr. Jake Berg, and my sister-in-law, Dr. Kayla Berg.
Heyo.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
Living the dream.
Pretty good.
That was like a really long pause.
That's because he's trying to think of how to explain how badly he wants to kill me today.
Well, you did text me what from scale of 1 to 10, and I said 10.
And he said 10, and I did it anyways.
Well, fuck around and find out, I guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not as big of a fuck around as he's making it out to be. I allowed my mother to buy Emmy a pet hamster.
You?
Not you.
I have no words.
It's fine. It's in her room. We've gone through lengthy discussions about her responsibility to this thing. It's in her room.
What if that little rat gets out of her cage?
Well, that's why it's in her room, because if it gets out of the cage, then at least the cats can't eat it from there,
until
theoretically.
I am sleeping in her room in a month and a half.
Yeah, you
Bitch.
are. I forgot about that.
Just kidding. I won't. I'm not going to kill your hamster. What's its name?
Its name is Lydia. She named it after the character on Beetlejuice. We were trying to come up with some kind of unhinged name because this hamster was insane in the pet store cage, and then we got it home into this cage, and the cage that we have has minimally spaced, thinly spaced wires. And
why? But why?
It climbed itself all the way up to the top of the cage, and then yeeted itself off to into the bedding.
Into the bedding of her bed?
No, into the bedding in the hamster cage.
Oh.
No, it can't get out. It's fine. Jesus. No, it's fine.
I'm laying in her bed. Okay.
There's a hamster in your face.
A hamster that have you...
You're snoring mouth open, and all of a sudden the hamster's halfway down your throat.
It's like a whole Parent Trap camping scene with the lizard.
With the lizard.
Scenario.
No, it's not going to be
fucking
like that.
Hamster.
It's fine.
It's a hamster named Lydia.
It's a hamster named Lydia, correct.
Oh my God.
A la Beetlejuice.
Okay, so basically you're going to be dead by tomorrow morning. So nice having you on the podcast.
I'm not going to be dead.
Now it is just Dr. Jacob Berg and his sister Kelsey.
Because he's going to kill me.
Yeah, you're dead.
It's fine. It's in her room.
So, Jake, what are your true feelings about the hamster named Lydia?
Well, I wasn't happy about it. I mean, I don't mind hamsters. We had hamsters before. It's just I don't want to take care of it. And there's a track record here, so I don't want to hear you yes, we'll do it, because that's what's said every single time. But
so Emmy has to prove herself as responsible with this hamster is the real clincher. He won't give a shit about the hamster as long as she actually holds up to her end of the hamster deal. Am I right?
Pretty much.
Okay, so as long as she does what she's supposed to do, the hamster's not actually that big of a deal.
I do everything for the cats besides the litter boxes.
And by everything you mean put food in the dish twice a day?
I mean, yeah, and pay attention to water and tell everybody when the litter box needs to be done.
I mean,
this is exactly why I don't want a pet.
Yeah,
I'll never
I didn't
have
want
one.
any pets either at all.
And here we are.
Yeah, it's your fault.
But I grew a human that looks just like you. Just for you. And I did.
Actually, she looks just like me.
She looks just like you. Oh, I know. It's freaking annoying. I mean, it's better that your second child looks just like me, which makes no sense genetically, but here we are.
That is true. It is the exact same nose. Where did that thing come from? It was like a telepathic giving him your nose.
I know. My bestie. Can't wait till he's older so we can get into some big shit.
He already is getting into some big shit.
I know, but it's going to be better when he's older.
4-year-olds, man. I'm done with them. Do you remember when Zeke was a 4-year-old and how much we were all like, when is he going to grow out of this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Felix is there. He's there.
You doing it again?
I've
got, hey.
No. Having another kid?
I say, do you want a tip for how to avoid that?
What?
She's past that point.
No, that's not the tip. It's not where I was going.
Unfortunately, can't shove him back into my vagina.
Just have one kid. If you only have one, you only have to do it once.
I just said she's past that point.
No. Yeah.
So who wants my second kid?
I mean, I kind of do.
Okay, I'll leave him there when we come to visit.
Okay, cool. Cool. I'll bring him back in July. Then you can have him again.
That sounds perfect.
Great.
I'm going to have so many haters. She doesn't even love her child.
She doesn't even love her kids. That's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bold lie.
Yeah. So anyways, here we are on our podcast. We officially launched today, which has been really fun.
Woo!
How are you guys feeling? It's been really fun. Kayla posted about it on social media. Jake and I were giving her shit because Jake and I were the only ones that subscribed. Like right when we launched it, it was like live and him and I subscribed and Kayla hadn't subscribed yet. And so we were like in our group chat saying,
Well, she hadn't even listened to it. I had to listen to it multiple times to edit it. And Kelsey, you listened to it because I had edited and been like, hey, listen to this for feedback.
I listened to it in the wee hours of last night / this morning when I couldn't sleep because storms.
We're having them too here.
Emmy and I were huddled in duck and cover position for like half an hour because tornadoes and stuff.
Wouldn't be the worst thing.
I know. Did you see there was actually a confirmed one up in...
Yeah, there was 3 confirmed tornadoes.
Was there 3 total? Okay. I'd heard 2 last time.
One of my really good friends up in Stevens Point area, they've been out of power for like 3 days.
From storms?
There was
20-some
thousand customers out of power in Louisville.
In Louisville last night. It was wild because they were like tracking the storm, like progressing. Like Emmy and I were watching the news on my phone, like the weather news. And they were like tracking it coming towards like us and just north of us and right around us. And all of a sudden they're like, pivot. Everyone pay attention to Louisville. Louisville, duck and cover right now. You're in big trouble. Also, there was nothing left about us. I was like, I guess we're okay. I don't know.
Well, that's good.
Anyways, so yes, I listened to our podcast.
Okay, so Kayla finally listened.
But then I was the first person
slaving away.
Oh my God, I can't.
Yeah, she did the work of listening to it while we did all the stuff like editing. And
well, I can't help it that y'all two have like lax jobs where you don't actually have to work during the day.
This is going to be a theme, isn't it?
Where
Kayla says how hard her job is over everybody else's. I'm not saying it's hard. Not hard. I'm not saying it's hard. No, I'm not saying it's not hard.
My job is harder than both of yours.
We both are working in public education.
Bro, you're not in a classroom with 12-year-olds. It's a whole different like
True. I'll take higher education any day.
Come do my job for a week and then tell me that we do the same thing.
I'm not even saying it's not harder than my job. It definitely is harder than my job.
It's more fun than your job. Like, on Friday.
I can't do anything else because my job's hard.
On Friday, I got paid to go to an arcade for 2 hours. I smoked some kids at go-karts.
I thought you were going to say you smoked some weed before you went there for some reason.
I smoked some kids at go-karts.
For legal reasons that would not and did not happen.
It didn't happen for reality reasons.
Well, yes, I know that.
Okay. My standards are low, but I do have them. No, we went to an arcade.
Sounds fun though, hey?
I went on a field trip to an arcade. And I kicked ass at the go-karts.
Are you saying my tax dollars went for you to go drive go-karts around?
Yep. Suck it.
Yep. Anyways, back to the fact that our podcast is live. So Kayla posted about it on to our people, and there's been a lot of really good feedback. So thanks to everybody who's been listening. We've actually had a decent amount of downloads, which is really fun.
Woo!
So thank you to everybody who's downloaded. I think, it's a small thing, but it's really big to us. So it's really cool. So, I mean, hopefully we just keep on getting more and more people that are downloading.
I was expecting the download thing to sit at 3,
I would say anything more than
Honestly.
3, and I was like pumped. I was like, it's not just us.
Well, when you had texted earlier, like the number that it was at, I was like, oh shit, like it's not just us and our moms.
Yeah. So we do appreciate everybody, like even just following it or anything, just for the support.
Yeah. So you can follow us. We have an Instagram now. It's at This Wasn't on the Test. That's our hash or our tag or whatever you call it on Instagram. So you can follow us there. And then we'll be posting, and you can get our podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Pretty much. I mean, it's broadcasting to everywhere.
Yep. Distributed on all the podcast platforms.
Okay, I have a question.
Cool.
And this is probably something I should know as we sit here putting out a podcast. Where else do people get podcasts on besides like Apple Podcasts, Spotify? Like, what are the other podcast
Nope, that's it. No.
platforms? No, I know that's not it, but I'm
everywhere else sucks.
those are the two places I listen to my podcasts, and I'm not like
I mean, how much do you want to go into it? Sorry.
I just needed you to give me a list.
The main ones are Spotify, Apple.
Yeah, check.
Like YouTube counts as a podcast platform.
Really?
Yeah, they've got podcasts on YouTube Music. Amazon Podcasts.
Oh, okay.
And then there's some other ones like Pandora, iHeartRadio.
Yeah. No, this all makes sense.
It's like all the large media companies, pretty much. And Jake, can they just search like This Wasn't on the Test? That's all they have to search.
Oh, I didn't try it on all of them, but on Apple Podcast, it was the first result.
I tried it on Apple and on Spotify because I knew Taylor listens on Spotify, and that was her question.
Cool.
So
love Taylor.
We'll
have her as a guest sometime.
For sure. I don't know what she's going to talk about either.
Oh. Well, we could replace Kelsey.
Kelsey spitting out her drink. We could replace Kelsey.
Taylor and I... Don't fucking replace me, you bitch.
That
Taylor
was
and
Jake's
I could have
suggestion.
our own podcast. Okay, well, don't replace me. Taylor and I could have our own podcast, and it would honestly probably top charts because we're so funny.
Okay.
We are. We're funny, okay?
Uh-huh. Love that for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, we already know. You've already told me that I'm the funny one. So you're calling Taylor not funny right now. Thank you.
She's not funny. Funny looking.
True. Okay.
Do you remember remember that one time we went on a trip unsupervised? Like last year?
I do. Yep.
I do remember thinking that entire time, like, how are we allowed to go out without adult supervision? Who let this happen?
That was a year ago.
It was a year ago right now. I keep telling Jake. Here's my other thing. I keep telling Jake, and he's getting real annoyed with me this week, because anytime anything inconvenient happens, and by inconvenient, I mean I don't have...
Buying a hamster?
No. And by inconvenient, I mean don't have waffles in bed. My response right now is, this resort is not getting a 5-star review on Yelp because we aren't going anywhere for spring break. I'm at home. And I'm like, where's the continental breakfast? What activities are happening on the Lido deck today?
And normal jobs don't have a spring break. So I'm apparently hosting this spring break while I have to do my actual job.
He is supposed to be hosting my spring break.
You have time. You can take time off.
Yeah.
We can have spring break together.
Bye for now.
Marte would love to host us.
But yes, there's no activities.
The hottest cruise director you've ever seen.
There's no activities on the Lido deck. There is no continental breakfast. And so I told him that his resort was not getting a 5-star review on Yelp. And he said, good, I don't want one. So
I'll give you a Lido deck experience.
I don't want your Lido deck experience. I've seen too much.
Well.
No thanks.
Anyways, so this is actually a podcast about like science and education, but we're also a very unhinged bunch. Minus Jake, who's not as unhinged as us.
Super hinged.
But here we are.
I'm off the rails.
Who's the funny one now, Kelsey?
Fuck.
What are you even here for?
Okay, bye.
Please don't leave.
Okay, I won't. So like we said on our last podcast, our concept is to talk about different topics regarding to Dr. Jake and Dr. Kayla, because they are doctors. Not the kind of doctor that can like diagnose a infection, but
Scalpel.
the kind of doctor that's what?
Scalpel.
Appendix. Your turn.
Oh, I was asking for a scalpel.
Oh, you're asking for a scalpel. I thought we were listing medical terminology.
I'll give you a scalpel. When I was a kid, I used to say my scallop, talking about my scalp, which is not the scalpel, but it's close.
You used to say a lot of dumb shit when you were a kid.
True. So anyways, this week we're going to start with Jake, Dr. Jake Burke. And Kayla and I did a little top secret meeting to give him his topic, and we chose gravity. Kind of like thinking like a focus on like space exploration, because those astronauts just got back from their long stint in space. Thank you, Jeebus, for bringing them back. Just kidding. It was Elon Musk. Just kidding. Also terrible. Jake hates me right now.
So much.
So anyways.
Just right now?
So Jake.
He only hates you right now?
No, he hates me always.
Okay.
Gravity. I guess just kind of the classic question to start out, like, what do you all think gravity is, like, based on your understanding right now?
Okay, I'll go first because I'm not a science person. Obviously, gravity is what holds us right to the ground.
Okay, that's how you experience gravity. Yeah.
Okay, so we experience gravity by it.
It is a force, yeah.
Okay, scene look.
But like, how does it work, I guess?
Is it because the Earth spins like in a certain way, or like it spins so fast, or it does whatever type of spinning it does, and so that pulls us into the Earth's core?
Oh no, Kelsey, no!
You just got played off. This is the Oscars. You were just played off.
Oh no!
Has nothing to do with spin.
Doesn't it? Well, okay. In terms of let's sidestep, but stay in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Gravity, like, is more. Hang on, let me put my words together. The relationship between like planets and gravity has more to do with the size of the planet. Yes, not the spinniness of the fucking planet.
Yeah, mass is the important piece of it. But we kind of talked about it a little bit last week. But I kind of have like two options. Is gravity like two things that are attracted to each other? Like, here's this one thing over here, and another thing over here, and then they're just attracted?
Like a magnetic pull?
No.
Kind of like a magnet.
I don't.
Or the other thing that we talked about is like, is it just due to how mass changes the curvature of space around it?
I'm going to go with B.
Sounds much more scientific. The answer is B.
Sounds not like a magnet.
Yeah. So the thing is, and it has a lot to do with some of the questions that we talked about last week, but like, we don't really actually know.
Wait, hang on. Am I right or wrong?
Well, that's what I was just saying, is that we don't actually really know.
Okay, so can we talk about how science is all things that we don't actually know?
There are no right answers. We keep asking questions and you have no answers for us.
Yeah, I know. It's a frustrating. How do you think I feel? And I'm a physicist.
Can you explain God to us then? Just kidding. Don't go there.
No.
In the beginning.
But like the point being that there's multiple theories about what gravity is, and like it does behave like things that are just attracted to each other, just like magnets, but where mass is the thing that is causing the attraction.
Is our love gravity?
A serious amount of gravity.
Oh my
yes.
God.
Gravity.
Wow. So much gravity.
No, we can't sing that song. You know you're about to.
What song?
What song?
I know. I was about to.
But like also when you treat it like that's the curvature of space, then there's other observations that like are satisfied by that type of theory. So like you have, and we talked about this last time too, like how you have conflicting theories that agree with observation at different scales and stuff like that. So, but I think that's the biggest point, is that there's multiple theories, but like you can think of it both ways. And a big part of like string theory is trying to come up with a theory that allows for both interpretations or both things to happen. So, but like, so it's valid to talk about it both ways. And that's what
I get that both ways can be like considered or whatever. Is one way more right or more provable than the other?
Again, it depends on the scale that you're talking. I mean, like,
this is impossibly frustrating. I just want an answer.
We can come up with an answer right now. I'm going to talk about both interpretations.
If I waterboard you, will you give me an answer?
Yeah, in that case, I'll definitely give you an
Which
answer.
one would you give me?
Me, personally, I'd give you the curvature of space.
Okay, cool. Great. I'm glad we got somewhere.
Yeah. But, like, it's a philosophical question about science, about, like, what is reality. It's really just applying things to your observations and being able to describe it.
This just took a weird turn.
So that's why I said that I think both descriptions are valid. So we will talk about both of those things that I said. But interesting thing about gravity is, my second question is, what do you think in terms of relative strength of the force between the different forces that there are? What do you think the order is of like their relative strength? So I'll give you the 4 forces.
So are we ranking these like strongest to weakest?
We can go strongest to weakest.
Okay, cool.
Wait, should I write this down?
Is this on the test?
I'll just remind you of the what they are.
I thought you were reminding us that this wasn't.
He's reminding us of what it is. Bitch, I never even learned what this is, okay?
I said it so many times.
I don't need a reminder. I need the whole lecture.
No, okay. So, well, we've already said a couple of them. We have the electromagnetic force, gravity, strong force, and the weak force.
I mean,
I think there's 2 of them that are easy to get in the right order.
I feel like
strong. Wait, let me do it first.
Okay.
Wait, let me do it first.
Okay.
So wait, I have to rank these from strongest to weakest?
Strongest to weakest.
Okay, so the strongest, I'm going to go with strong.
Good start.
So the second one is going to be... That's a strong start. Here we are. The second one is going to be electromagnetic. The third one is going to be gravity, and the fourth one is going to be weak.
Okay. I'm not going to, like, legitimately of my own accord before her, I was going to switch gravity and electromagnetic.
Okay, so yours is strong, gravity, then electromagnetic,
then weak.
And then weak.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of you are correct.
No, that tracks.
What? Damn it.
This
wasn't on the test, Jake.
So strong force is not the strongest force.
What if I told you the weak force was the strongest out of them?
Shut the fuck up.
It's not.
Okay.
Not.
But you are telling us that strong force is not the strongest force, and weak force is.
I'm not telling you that. The strong force is the strongest.
Okay. Then what?
Electromagnetic.
Okay. Then what?
And then weak. And then gravity.
Why is weak force not the weakest force?
Well,
this is like false advertising here.
Because the first 3 are similar kind of in how they work. Then the gravity is kind of all by itself because of the other things that we've talked about with like how it's more has to do with like the curvature of space-time and all these things. The strong electromagnetic and weak forces really have to do with like the exchange of particles interacting on the small scale. So
what do you mean by that? I need you to bring that down a little more for us not physics
maybe this
people.
is another one for you to write down. But like the strong force is what holds like particles together.
Okay.
Like at the very microscopic level.
Got it.
And then like electromagnetic and weak are just kind of like when you have 2 particles that are colliding or passing by each other, they'll interact via those forces and exchange what's called virtual particles to cause different processes in terms of decay or or changing particles and stuff like that. So those top three kind of are those directly particle interacting forces.
So on the like molecular atomic level.
Even smaller than that, but yes.
But like,
yeah.
Right, okay.
So,
and that all creates gravity.
No, gravity is separate. This was the first three forces.
The point was that they're separate.
Okay, listen. Okay. I'm going to implement a teaching strategy. Next week, I'm going to need you to give me your notes ahead of time. I'm going to make Kelsey her own set of guided notes that she can use to follow along.
Okay.
Sounds lovely.
But anyway, gravity is not how like the particles interact. Well, I mean, technically, yeah, it is, but it has to do with the mass of particles and how the particles interact due to their mass. So technically, there is a framework where particles do interact and exchange a graviton, virtual particle. We don't need to talk about that. But the other three forces are about the particles interacting directly, and gravity is kind of its own thing where we have mass interacting with each other. And as an example about like the scale and the relative strength that we're talking about. So if you take the strong force as like just a value of 1, it doesn't matter what its actual value of the force is. But relative to the strong force, gravity is 10 to the 38th times weaker
Holy shit.
than the strong force.
Okay, can you put this in perspective for me?
Mm-hmm.
If strong force... Okay, no, let me back this up. If gravity was the same strength as strong force, what would that do to us on Earth?
That's an interesting question I hadn't really thought about. But I mean, that's such a massive difference that if gravity was on that level, I mean...
Like, would we just turn into puddles on the ground?
I mean, I think you're probably looking at something where, like, the Big Bang couldn't happen because you'd have, like, it would just be basically
I just mean, like, how would that impact, like, people?
Well, I'm saying that that's so strong of a difference that the only thing you could have is, like, a black hole, essentially. Because, like, stars would just completely collapse in on themselves immediately, even more than they already do with gravity. So if you're talking about multiplying the force that they experience by...
In what... So when is strong force a force? I mean, I know always, but like in what...
Is a strong force just like a force in the crust of our Earth?
No, strong force is particles, but like I want to know like...
The strong force is like literally what holds particles together. So like you have two quarks that make up a meson particle. So like a pion. And you have one quark and one antiquark. And those things are bound together.
By strong force?
By the strong force.
Okay.
And the strong force is, I mean, this is a whole other thing, but the strong force is interesting because the force gets stronger. So think about like when you are like bringing two magnets close to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And like as they get closer and closer, you have to like hold them apart, like harder and harder.
Okay.
Right? It's opposite for the strong force. So it actually takes more force to pull them apart.
So then, okay, so let's reverse my question. Do the inverse of it. What would happen if strong force was as weak as gravity? What would happen in the particle world?
Then everything would just tear apart, essentially, because nothing could be held together.
What do you mean by everything?
Mass hysteria.
I mean,
people?
Everything. Every single
like
particle.
We would have never been created because like we would not
protons,
survive on this planet.
Protons are, like molecules, and protons are made up of quarks that are being held together by the strong force, which could just not be held together anymore. Because at some point, you have the kinetic energy.
How do people survive in space without gravity?
I feel like you just went into left field. Like this was not where we were at currently. Kelsey,
because I'm thinking of
Kelsey's like, so what's the flavor of the week at Belts in 3 weeks?
But why male models?
You say, but why male models?
Yeah, it's from Zoolander.
I'm like thinking about like an actual thing that's like held together by force and like gravity holds it down. And then I'm like, okay, we go into space. Like, do we explode or like obviously we stay together?
Because gravity and strong force are different
experiencing
forces.
Gravity.
just less.
Oh, but it's a less amount of gravity.
Correct. Right?
Sorry, say the question again.
You said it's just less.
People in space are still experiencing gravity. It's just a less amount of gravity. Interesting.
Yes.
I thought there was zero gravity there. Like the Rainbow Falls ride, zero gravity. I was sure.
Misnomer.
Yeah. So the equation for gravity, you don't have to think about this too much, but there's
I'm going to think about this for the rest of the night.
Called G, which is just kind of a constant, and then you have the mass of one object times the mass of the other object, and then all of that is divided by the distance between them squared. So, which makes sense, right? Because like the further away you are from something, the less gravity that you feel from it. And that's pretty common amongst a lot of forces.
So when you're talking about an astronaut, you're talking about like the person versus Earth.
They're further
as your
away
two
from
objects,
the
so
center
they're
of the
further
Earth.
away. Okay.
Yep. Now there is a whole other thing about how orbit and space travel works. It's not that they're experiencing no gravity. It's that it's that they're actually going so fast perpendicular to the surface of the Earth.
I'm going to need more explanation there.
So, like you said, like if you are on like the surface of the Earth, like you would fall, right? So they're actually going so fast that they're going perpendicular to the Earth, where they would be going like away from the Earth, but as they go perpendicular, they're getting pulled back towards by gravity.
Okay, which is what keps them in orbit.
Right.
Got it.
Interesting.
But
okay.
it becomes easier.
It becomes
easier and easier to leave Earth's like sphere of influence in terms of gravity the further out that you get. But if you if you just stopped in place like a spaceship that's orbiting, you would immediately like fall back towards Earth.
Okay, that answers kind of my question. I'm like, okay, so if somebody, when they go into Earth, they're not just like in one solitary spot, right? Like when they're out in space, I mean.
No.
They're orbiting, going around.
Yeah,
Can we talk about that in a podcast sometime about like where they actually are when they're out in space?
Sure.
Write it down. Write it down.
I'll write it down. Writing it down right now.
The point about the equation, like the radius or the distance between the objects is important, but the mass difference of the objects is maybe more noteworthy to talk about. So, like if you're talking about yourself and the Earth,
mm-hmm.
Earth is so much more massive than you, right? And so that's why like it just kind of dominates that relationship, because you also like you exert a force of gravity on the Earth a little bit. Okay.
Does the Earth feel it?
The Earth definitely feels it.
Okay.
But when you're doing the math on like determining what your acceleration is, so you've probably heard the thing about like Galileo dropping a bowling ball off the Tower of Pisa, right?
Did that actually happen?
Well, ask a historian about that.
Okay.
Probably people think it's
different
conjecture.
podcast.
But
ask Galileo himself.
Yeah, go ask him.
Hang tight. Let me get my time machine real quick.
But like, and
BRB.
you've probably seen those experiments where they like have a vacuum sealed thing where they drop like a bowling ball and a feather at the same time, and they will fall to the Earth at the same rate. Mm-hmm. But that's because if you do the math, the mass of the object that's experiencing the gravity cancels out of that equation in terms of acceleration. So you have all of the...
What do you mean? Like, how does that cancel out?
So you have F equals ma. Have you heard that before?
Force equals mass times acceleration. Got
well,
it.
that can be equated to that equation for gravity.
How so?
Ma equals G, mass of the first object, mass of the second object, divided by the radius, or the distance between them squared. You have the m on both sides for the same object.
Got it. Okay, I'm
so
on board
when you
now.
divide, you cancel that out. You get acceleration is equal to only dependent upon the distance between and the mass of the object that's exerting the influence of the gravity. So that's why we all feel the same amount of gravity. But the interesting thing about that is talking about our solar system then, because that's also a system made up of a bunch of massive things. So I want you all to give me, for my third question, what you would guess the mass of the Sun, Jupiter, and Earth is.
Combined, which is more...
Each. In kilograms.
The Sun, Jupiter, and Earth. A lot, slightly less than a lot, and still a lot, but the least of those three.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Moving on.
I don't.
No, I want you to guess a number.
In kilograms?
Okay, I'll guess the number. Kilograms. So this is like how much it weighs.
It's the mass.
Technically mass, but yes.
The mass.
Mass and weight aren't the same. They're close, but they're not.
Okay, you're right. Okay, but if it's like floating in space,
it still has mass.
Time, wouldn't it be 0?
No, it still has mass.
Whoa, you just unlocked it, Kelsey.
What?
No.
Did I?
No,
Oh.
I'm not. My favorite thing is just like giving you all hope.
My favorite thing is giving you hope and then taking it away and crushing your spirits. Oh my gosh. Okay. In kilograms.
I loved that. I have no clue. I mean, like, okay, so if I weigh however much I weigh, the Earth weighs so much more. It's not about weight though. Shit. Okay. I don't know.
You can think of them pretty similarly. Let's go with like 100 kilograms is the average human weight. 100 kilograms.
Okay. Good call. Love that.
Okay, so Earth is probably...
Are we talking... Okay, hang on. Because
Let's say Earth is like 1 million kilograms.
Hang on.
I bet the Sun is like 2.1 million kilograms.
Oh my God.
And what was the other one?
Listen. Have you not seen that? Okay, so one of my favorite graphics is the picture of like, this is the size of the Sun and how many teeny tiny Earths fit into it.
Mm-hmm.
If we're saying theoretically, I'm not even saying this is right, that the Earth is 1 million kilograms, then the Sun's got to be like in the trillions.
Between those amounts, I think that's the actual exact
Relationship.
order of relationships.
See? Listen.
Kayla,
What?
do you like have a doctorate or something? Are you a scientist?
Oh my God, I'm not a scientist, but I do have a doctorate.
You're way off in terms of the actual mass.
I'm sure.
Just the relationship is
I
great.
can't even, like...
Okay, it's
the relationship
10
between,
to something.
The
what
relationship between objects in space mesmerizes me, but I just...
All
like,
of these
it's
are
so big,
expressed
you
in
can't.
like 10 to the something kilograms. What do you think? Take a guess.
10 to the 54th.
Okay, that's actually too much.
Oh, okay. 10 to the 38th.
Still too much.
10 to the 25th.
Okay, you're in the right area.
Okay.
So the sun.
That's for the Sun, yes?
Well, they're all kind of in that area.
Oh,
Obviously, it's
shit.
massive amount of difference, but I'm just going to give it to you now. I just wanted to know what you were going to guess. So the Sun is 10 to the 30th.
At least I know that the Sun is a lot bigger
Yeah.
than the Earth and not just twice as big.
At least you didn't guess that it's 2 million
It
kilograms.
looks so small up there. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's tiny. Haven't you looked at the sky? That's way smaller than the Earth.
As far as I know, the Sun is smaller than the moon.
And the Earth is flat, and we live in the Sun orbits around the Earth.
Yep.
And it is the year 1262.
Wait, can I say one really funny thing?
Probably.
So when my oldest son had his first birthday, this is so embarrassing.
I'm here for it. What's happening?
For his first birthday, I did like I don't know what theme I did. It was just like cutesy, but then I made this little sign. And I should have posted. I should have written on this.
I feel like
She's not even going to get this out.
I feel like I see where this is going, and it's gonna
I
be
should have
terrible.
written 1 year around the sun, or like how would you say that? Like one
trip around the sun.
1 year, 1 trip around the sun.
Did you say one trip around the Earth?
Did you say 365 trips around the sun?
365 trips around the sun.
Oh gosh.
Your child is 365 years old.
to change it when, like, because I heard somebody talking about my sign.
Oh my god, that's amazing. Do you have pictures of this?
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure I could find them.
I
I'm
need
sure
you to
I could
find
find them. So anyways, I'm an idiot. Let's talk about gravity.
That's why we invited you.
Okay. So, like I was
know.
saying, the mass of the sun is 10 to the 30th kilograms. The mass of Jupiter is 10 to the 27th kilograms. The mass of the Earth is 10 to the 24th kilograms. So you're right on, Kayla, actually, that it's
Like
10
triple.
to the 6th, the difference
Right.
between
See?
the orders of
Look at
magnitude.
me.
Like a million Earths inside of the sun. But the point is that all of these objects are actually interacting with each other in terms of gravity, but the sun being the biggest is going to dominate that. But so the interesting thing about that is that you can actually measure the amount that the planets like exert the gravitational influence on the sun itself. So like you think of the sun as the center of the solar system, but really you can model like any star and planet like set as like something orbiting the center of mass of the two of those objects. So like with the sun moving around and the planet moving around, you can also think of it I guess I'll just say that like that's happening for every planet in the solar system, and like Jupiter is actually it's only like 1,000 times 10 to the third in order of magnitude mass difference, which I mean is a lot obviously still, but you can observe just looking at the sun and then all the planets together. I saw an interesting graphic of like where the center of the mass of the solar system is at any one point in time, and there's enough mass and based on the arrangement of the planets that like that
The center
of
of mass isn't always the sun.
It's yeah. So a lot of the times it's inside the radius of the sun,
Right.
but there's other points in time where it's well outside of the sun.
Can
like
I confess to
within
something?
extra radius of the sun, but like
Can I confess to something that, not that I didn't know, I guess I just didn't think about. I watched it in a science video that I showed my kids this year. But talking about how, like, obviously, okay, we have the sun, we have the planets that orbit around the sun. But, like, I guess I always thought of, like, I get that this is wrong. I understand that this is wrong. I just didn't put two and two together. I guess when I think of it, I always think of the sun as, like, stationary.
right. Yeah, that's
but
my
the
point.
idea that like the sun is also moving while we're orbiting, so we're making this like weird moving orbit through space.
Mhm.
So like the title of this video, it's actually my favorite science videos to use in class when I teach my science units are like mini like TED Ed videos. They have these really cool like animated science ones that are like 5 or 6 minutes long. And this one is like you'll travel however many trillion kilometers through space in your lifetime.
Oh yeah.
Because you're not only
Everything is moving.
right.
Yeah, like we're in the arm of a galaxy that's
And so,
moving.
yeah.
And
So it's not just like us moving around the sun. The sun is also moving
Right.
while we're moving around
the
it.
galaxy is rotating. The
Right.
galaxy is also moving through space.
Yeah.
So I guess it was one of those things that like, yeah, that makes sense. And but I never think about it. I don't know.
But also
It's probably from the fact that when we were in elementary school, we had to make models of the solar system that were completely where the sun
yeah.
never moved.
I mean, I think
Yeah, that really fucks you up.
I think
right?
people probably understand that like the solar system is moving through like space as a unit, but I think probably a lot of people think of the sun as stationary in the center of that system. But like
it's almost like the sun is the one moving and we're like following along.
Well,
yes.
those
No?
are it's like a mutual relationship
Right.
of
Okay.
gravity. So like every planet has its own relationship with the sun where it's causing the sun to wobble on like a center between the center of mass. So the sun is so massive that the center of mass between any planet and the sun is generally like inside the radius of the sun. But then when you have like
Sure.
that system rotating around, that you just get the sun kind of going around just wobbling a little bit. And that's like I said, like the center of mass of the solar system. the sun is going to basically be orbiting around that center of mass, which sometimes is still in the side of the radius of the sun, but a lot of other times like slightly outside of it.
Well, call me a layman because I didn't realize that gravity affected anybody else but Earth.
I thought gravity was just mine.
So the last thing I want to...
There's probably a lot of people that think that.
Yeah, definitely. The last thing I want to talk about is at even bigger scale than that. So like I just mentioned, like the galaxies are moving through space and feeling gravity from other galaxies. So that's like each kind of big blob package of matter in the universe is exerting gravity on the other pieces that are around. So but when you're talking about a galaxy, that's such a massive amount. I mean, you're talking about the sun's mass, which actually the sun is a relatively small star in terms of what we know about stars, and billions or trillions of those in a galaxy altogether. You're talking about so much mass. And so that's why it's kind of important to understand how curvature comes into this equation and how things interact with that curvature, namely light. And so the last thing I want to talk about is an interesting phenomenon called galactic lensing. Have you ever heard that?
Cleansing?
Galactic lensing.
Lensing, like lens of a glasses.
Like glasses.
Okay, cool. Nope, I have not.
So
Galactic
lensing. Yep.
With a G. Yep. Okay. I thought you said with a C, and I was like, sounds like an STD.
No, this is actually how...
Jake's like Milky Way chlamydia.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I got. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
This is actually how we know
Single and ready to mingle.
This is how we actually know that curvature plays some amount of... plays into like how gravity works. And that's because we've observed this thing called galactic lensing. And that's actually like if you are here and you're looking into space and you look at a galaxy and you see that, but then if you think past that galaxy, even further into the distance is another galaxy.
Okay.
But you can't see that far galaxy because the one in front of it is blocking it. Well, because of the curvature of space, the light that's coming out of that far galaxy, is kind of coming out in all directions. And then like it's shining towards us, there's just the galaxy in the way. But the stuff that kind of just barely misses the galaxy to the top and the bottom in terms of when we're looking at it, that is going to be like skirting past the curvature of that galaxy in space. And what we actually see, we have essentially photographs of this, is like a ring around the galaxy that we're looking at that is the light that's from the galaxies behind it.
Oh, cool. Because
you can think of like that ball in the sheet example.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing to realize about that is that is a little bit of a misleading interpretation. That's not just happening in one dimension. That's happening in every single dimension around that massive object. And so you have everything that's coming to a point in terms of gravity. So when the light is going like, trying to go past the galaxy, it's actually getting bent around that curvature in all directions around that galaxy. And so that's why you see like a whole ring around that galaxy when you look at it in space.
So how does that relate to gravity? Like that particular phenomenon?
Right, because the near galaxy is so massive that it's warping the curvature of the actual fabric of space that it lies in.
Got it.
And so the light that's going that would pass and just never get to us, it has to follow that curvature. And that's like a lot of those examples with that ball in the sheet thing is they take like a second ball and kind of throw it and you see it kind of following the path. That's what light does because it follows a straight line.
But it has to contend with the gravity.
But the space is curved due to gravity.
Got it.
And so a straight line in that case is actually, it looks curved to a distant observer.
It's actually really interesting to think about.
I thought that was really
That
interesting.
Yeah.
So that's why like
I agree.
the question about like what is gravity? Well, as everything with physics, it's a complicated answer because it's hard to say anything with definitive certainty, because we see things that behave in one way and describe them in one way really well, but taking that description to a different thing doesn't really work. But we have a different description for a different phenomenon that we observe that is described really well. That's going to be a common theme, I think, especially when we're talking about like particle physics and more of the modern physics stuff. But yeah. Well, anyway, I think that's it for gravity for this. Obviously, a million other things we could talk about, but those were at the surface, the interesting things that I thought that I would talk about today.
Cool. Yeah, honestly, thanks, Jake. I feel like I actually learned a ton. Like I actually am like,
I really do.
I am like understanding a lot more, and I'm just kind of mind blown a little bit about some of the things I learned. So, I'll close off your little segment with a joke.
Oh gosh.
I'm reading a book on anti-gravity. It's impossible to put down. You get it? Aren't you left?
Yeah, we got it.
We got it.
It's a great joke, okay?
That's for the audience to decide, I guess.
Great. Okay, so Kayla, what are we talking about again today? Because honestly, my brain is still kind of blown under gravity. So let's bring it back. I think we're talking about like school calendars, right?
Calendars, which seems much less exciting. I feel like I should have gone first. Like I'm losing this week. I'm not as fun as gravity.
Well,
but at least
still to be decided.
At least your topic, like maybe a little bit more relatable.
Probably more relatable, just slightly
at a practical level.
Yeah,
because nobody's getting away.
And color-coded notes.
Wow. And since all of our fans are literally teachers from your school, they'll love this part.
Heyo. Or students. School calendars. Okay. So I think the big question was that you all had was like, how does the school decide on a calendar, and how does that transition work from one school year to another? Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So I've got a couple of things that we're going to talk about in whatever level of detail we get to. So the first bit, we're going to start with my question to you all. Who decides a school calendar? Who gets to decide what the calendar is going to be for the school year?
The school board.
Are we talking
first guess?
Okay. Next.
Jesus himself.
In the
false.
private school system.
I was going to say, if you go to
in the private school sector, my kid goes to a Lutheran school, and I swear they have no thought process about when this calendar happens or doesn't happen. So
I need us to remember as we're talking about this that I'm talking from like one district. I do have some information about other districts in some parts of this, but in general, I'm talking about this one. So your school calendar in terms of what's going to happen.
Wait,
go ahead.
Can we also say the school district that you have the most experience in is specifically in like essentially the Bible Belt?
It is, but that does not affect the school calendar. That is true, but it has
doesn't,
nothing to do with the
really?
school calendar. Nope, not a bit, not even a little bit. We don't even have off for Good Friday.
Wow, Satanists, heathens.
So your school calendar is going to vary, even within one state. The actual like calendar of when you're in school and when you're not is going to vary by district, and how each district decides on that calendar is different from district to district. Now, in the district that I'm in, typically the district, not the board, but someone at central office will propose a couple of calendars. And so around, which this is going to sound wild, around October/November-ish, they put out, here's our potential calendars for the following school year. So we're talking like 10 months before the next school year starts, they're talking about that calendar. And so they put it out there for stakeholders to vote. So teachers can vote on what calendar they think is going to be best. Parents can vote. Students old enough to understand can and to have their own.
When you say vote, is this at like a school board meeting?
No, this is usually electronic. Our district uses like a Google form where you go in and you can see all the options and you can click, I like option A. I like option B. And they usually ask you in there like what your role is within the district. If you're a community member, if you're a teacher, if you're a parent, if you're a student, if you're whatever it is that you are. But no, there's usually an electronic form where you can go see, here's the options we're looking at for the following school year. And there isn't a ton of variety in terms of what those options are. Most of the differences are in terms of when the start day is going to be, when professional learning days for teachers are going to be throughout the school year, whether fall break, which we have here in the South, is a big thing, whether fall break is going to be the first or second week of October. Like there's some variety, but it's usually the varieties around when the breaks are going to take place. And it's within like a week or so, and start of school is within like a day or two. Like it's not drastically different options, but you do have some say into what that calendar is going to be.
But is this a situation where it's like, thanks for your input, we're making an independent decision?
I don't know on the back end. Because I
How
can't.
much they take the votes into account.
Right, because I don't, from my end, I don't see the results of the votes to know like, oh, hey, this one won, so this is the one we're going to vote on. And then at that, they also have to bring it to the board. The board has to approve it, like to vote on, like, do we approve this calendar for the next school year?
I think it says a lot that I had no idea that there was any voting process into this.
That's a you problem. They typically post this on all their social media, their website, their
I
whatever.
read a lot of their social media.
Okay. I also get it in a school email, so
yeah,
it's a little like it shows up in my email that I have open during the workday. So it's hard to ignore.
They're probably like, don't forget to vote. Somebody please vote.
Anyone vote. Anyone vote.
Anyone vote. Well, it's interesting because like you guys have a very different school calendar than we have up in Wisconsin.
Yes. So that shockingly plays into my second point, which is that the only like legal followings that have to be, the only legal things that have to be held from district to district is legally how many days you have to be in school. And that varies.
So they could start on the middle of September or the middle of August. Nobody cares.
And typically like in any state, like most school districts in a state are fairly similar, plus or minus. But the number of days you have to be in school is something set down and mandated by that state. So for Kentucky, it's the Kentucky Department of Education mandates how many days in a year like students have to be in school. And that's not teacher contracts. That's a separate thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we're talking about students in school. So for Kentucky, actually look this up.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So the Kentucky Department of Education chooses that, which I would assume the Wisconsin, because I live in Wisconsin, Department of Education chooses ours.
Very likely.
Officially, right? So how does, this might go into like way too much than we need to go into, but like the Department of Education federally right now is being attacked, obviously. So like, does that affect like how all of that is being decided and how all of that is rolling out now coming into this next year?
In terms of school calendar and school days, no, that's decided at a state level.
Okay.
Which is, I could get deep into the whole Department of Education thing.
So,
but
just how Donald Trump wants it.
There's a lot of things that like there's this high horse of we need to give power back to the states. In terms of like education, there is a lot of power the states already have.
This is a whole can of
This
worms.
is a whole can of worms. But the states do decide a lot of things. The big federal thing is funding, and we can get into that later. But in terms of
and
like
equity and all that too.
Right. And like legal things regarding students with disabilities and what services students are provided.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that are decided on by the state. Teacher certification differs from state to state. Like what it is that you have to do and what the requirements are and what tests you need to pass and what scores you need to get to pass them. Like when I took my teacher tests to be certified in different subject areas, I had to put in there, here's the state I'm looking to get certified in. So there's a lot of stuff that states.
Sure. So you were like, I have teeth, so I can get certified in Kentucky?
Your mouth. No, I had to actually pass a test. I still stand by my favorite fun fact before we get back into this is that when I took my certification test to get certified to teach gifted and talented, at the end it tells you like, okay, pass, fail, here's what your score, here's a passing score, here's what your score was. But then it breaks it down by category in terms of like, here's where you scored the highest, here's where you scored the lowest, here was your score in each of these individual categories. And this pretty much sums up me as a teacher entirely. My highest score was in teaching gifted children. So like actually being in a classroom, teaching kids, all that shenanigans. My lowest score, professionalism, interacting with adults. I am great with the kids. I'm a train wreck with the adults. And that's pretty much me as a teacher.
Can I say I'm not surprised
either.
Let's say that Kayla has a reputation with the leadership in the school district.
I'm the squeaky wheel.
Mm-hmm.
But
they can't do it
something
without
doesn't
you,
make sense.
so.
I'm going to let them know it doesn't make sense. Anyways, so states decide how many days the school districts have to be in school, like the students have to be. So in Kentucky, it's 180. They have to be in school 180 days. The lowest in the United States is Colorado at 160, and the most is Kansas at 186. So there is some variety in terms of school days and school calendar among states. Now,
that's
I know.
wild. So 160 days.
160 in Colorado is the least amount in the United States, and 186 in Kansas. And Kentucky's at 180.
Well, shit. Let's move to Colorado then.
See, but here's the thing, and we'll get into this in a second. That's student days. That has nothing to do with teachers.
I don't care about you.
Of course not.
I care about
Did
my
you
kids
happen
being
to
in
look
school
to
for
see
the
if,
month
like,
less.
in Colorado they have longer school days or anything like that?
I did not look, but that's a fun segue into... So when we have snow days, because snow days factor into the school calendar, and especially it's different in Wisconsin where they know they're going to have snow and snow days versus the South where, like, you don't know, it could be a winter where there's no snow days. It could be a winter like this year where, oh my gosh, we had so many snow days in NTI, non-traditional instruction.
It's wild. We only had one
Right.
snow day here. And it wasn't for snow. It was because it was cold.
And a lot of that also has to do with infrastructure.
Yep.
In terms of what resources are available to deal
Now
with the
that
snow.
You mentioned this, I remember that they, like, starting like 5 to 10 years ago, they started adding more days into the calendar. So I don't remember when it was, but I think this was more on the order of 170 something.
Right. So
before
that's the thing too, is that when it gets down to, there's a legal amount of time students have to be in school. And in Kentucky, it is 1,062 hours. So.
Okay, well, I just looked up Colorado, and Colorado's is 1,082 hours. So they must have longer days.
Very possible. Very possible. So when we get into snow days, the district that I'm in, we actually have more days/hours scheduled than is legally required. So with this year, with all the snow days our board was able to pass an amendment to the calendar to, quote, forgive 5 of our snow days. So the students don't have to make up 5 of the snow days because we are still within our legal amount of hours of instruction provided to students.
How many hours did you say it was?
1,062.
Okay. Divided by how many hours per day are they actually?
Our students in school,
Yeah.
Middle school is 7 hours.
Okay. See, just doing the math, because is 151 days.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot more days than is legally required.
Correct.
Okay.
So this does not, we're going to kind of skip around a little bit. This does not reflect at all on teacher days, because teachers are technically, it's going to baffle everybody, teachers are contract workers. We are contracted for a certain number of days. And so our days does not matter what the students are there. So like, even though the students don't have to make up these instructional hours because we have enough instructional hours built in, teachers do. So I'll end up going to school 5 days at the end of the school year without students because I need to work those days to fulfill my contract, whether students are there or not.
So is your contract, is that like a Kentucky specific thing, or is that across the board in the entire United States? Like, is every single teacher on a contract?
We are contract workers.
Wow.
I know. Weird. So this is where you get into the crazy, like, well, teachers don't work during the summer. We don't get paid for that. We are contracted for me, I'm contracted for 187 days. I have to work 187 days. My paycheck, my salary, the number that is agreed upon in my contract is for working those 187 days. Like, you work 187 days, we will pay you these dollars.
So you're making great money.
If we talk about an hour, no,
Just
seriously,
kidding.
if we talk about an hourly, I've looked at this before for a variety of reasons. If we're talking about like how much I make an hour, I make great money. The problem is
You're working 50 less days than the average person.
Right. The problem is there's not a teacher on a planet that doesn't work those days. That doesn't work just, 7.5 hours for 187 days.
Right. And also you've gone through 10 plus years of being in education, plus gotten your master's, plus gotten your doctorate degree. Like, there's so much more that's gone into it to get
you've maxed out
your
your on the scale.
Yes.
Yeah.
Short of being like an administrator or working at a more district level job, and working more years, I've maxed out where I'm at. Our matrix for our salary is rows based on how many years you've been teaching, and then columns based on what's your degree status
level.
I'm maxed out on columns. I can't go any further right on this thing than I'm already at. I'm done. I'm tapped out.
Sounds like you're the richest teacher in America.
Big not facts. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So
got to get into higher education next.
I mean, that would be the only other way to max out, is to move to a higher paying district, a higher paying state, or move out of public education and into private or higher ed.
Well, it's a catch-22 because they pay higher because the cost of living is higher.
Right. It's a horse apiece any way you go. So then, and here's the other interesting thing, is that teacher contract, there's two types of employees in the district. There's 10-month employees and there's 12-month employees. So I'm a 10-month employee. I don't work June or July, technically. It's a whole other whatever. And then districts also have some employees on 12 months. So those would be your administrators, your central office employees, but also our janitors are 12-month employees, or our custodians, they're 12-month employees. They work throughout the summer too. I'm trying to think of who else is classified as a 12-month employee.
Like, anybody in administration is probably a 12-month employee. 12 because I think about my work, I work in higher education. I'm in administration technically, and so I'm a 12-month employee, but we do have people who are just adjunct instructors that are on 8-week contracts. Yeah.
So then this brings me to my next question. In terms of teacher contracts, what is the difference between a limited and a continuing contract for teachers?
Ooh, I probably know this just because of my current life. Limited is it's on, I think of limited as well, in my world, you would say they're on contract, right? So it's has an end date.
Okay.
It's grant funded, or it has an end date or something like that, where there isn't funding to go past a certain date.
Okay.
Right. So that's limited. And then continuing would be somewhere where it's you have an option every single year where your job will be quote unquote open, right? And then you have first right of refusal. So you can sign your contract to extend into that year before anybody else could.
Okay. So K-12 is same but different. So your limited contracts, contracts are 1 year at a time. So if you sign a limited contract as a teacher, you are, barring something crazy, guaranteed to work for that whole school year. Your contract lasts that 187 days for whatever salary your contract is. Once you get to a continuing contract, that's when you have tenure. So your contract does not end unless you resign. So for your first 4 years of teaching, you sign a limited contract every year. And so at the end of the year, you can be let go for no reason. They don't have to have a reason. Your contract was only good for that 1 year. After 4 years, you sign a continuing contract, which is basically like unless you do something real illegal or are not doing your job, your contract,
right,
or you resign, your contract will continue in perpetuity. Well, more or less. But you got to get through the 4 years and 1 day. And that varies by district and by state too. It's 4 years and 1 day. On the first day of your 5th year, you are considered a, quote, tenured teacher.
Yeah, that first day.
And now, is that by district?
That is, don't quote me on this, but I'm fairly certain that's pretty much the case throughout Kentucky. That is not the case in every state.
That extra first day on the tenures, you know, we've heard cases of people who work 4 years and then get fired and don't actually have the job at the start of the next school year.
That is basically like you have to work that first day to begin your continuing contract, to actually have that contract.
Or I guess I shouldn't say fired, because of the nature, like you were just saying, between limited and continuous. Like they have a limited contract and then the school just goes like, we're not renewing your contract for the next year.
9 out of 10, you're going to get a reason. Like, here's why. Here's why you're getting pink slipped, you're getting non-renewed. But they don't have to give you one because you are on a 1-year contract.
Well,
your contract is up, the end.
It's like any job where it's like, well, the fact that you would gain this benefit to our detriment may have played a factor into picking you over the other people that may have a similar situation. Or
it's typically, I mean, there are performance-based situations. A lot of the time will shock to no one in education. It's money. That position is being cut. That position is no longer funded. And you're the low man on the totem pole. If you've been there less time than someone else, or if you're on a limited contract and someone else is on a continuing contract, you're out. And that's the other tricky thing is if there was a reduction in force, meaning that job doesn't exist anymore, but you are on a continuing contract, part of being on that continuing contract is the district has to find you a job in the district.
Right, or they're paying you,
correct,
essentially.
Because you're on that continuing
Yep, so they can either pay you and not get any work out of you, or they can put you somewhere else
within
in the
your
district.
certification area. They can't just, hey, surprise, you're teaching kindergarten now.
That's probably something that we should...
For the record, I'd quit.
Because, but this is another topic for a different episode. But then there's the opposite situation where they are given a job that they're not certified in because they asked them if they would do it, even though they're not certified in that.
There's a lot of gray area.
I know there's been a lot of times where it's like, that person isn't even certified in this topic that they're teaching all year.
Yes.
Well, it's interesting too because like Wisconsin is an at-will state, so like anybody can get fired at any point. They don't have to have a reason to fire you in the state of Wisconsin. Okay,
but it's a contract.
It's a contract. So if you're on a continuing contract,
it's different.
Yeah, so is Kentucky, but we have a contract.
Unless your contract says that it can be terminated by either party
at any time.
For any reason.
It all comes down to the contract.
That supersedes the at-will,
for the record,
work.
I just want to point out, I get that I just said that I would quit if I had to teach kindergarten. I firmly believe kindergarten teachers are saints. Like, these people do not make enough money. Like, they're magic. Sure. They are unicorns.
They should make more money than the rest of
them. They are
them.
angels. They're majestic. I couldn't do it. Nope. I can't do kindergarten. I can't do it. I couldn't do it. Nope.
No, even like my son's second grade teacher, every time I've like had a conference with her, like
they're magic.
Out, I'm like, I could not. 30, not 30. She doesn't have 30. She has like 17 or 15.
It's about 14 too many.
Second graders. Exactly. I can hardly handle
for real
my one second grader. I'm like, why are you asking so many questions? Like,
here's the wild thing. So depending upon what your certification is will determine what your grades that you can teach are. So for English, I can teach 5 through 12. So I can teach down to 5th grade. Okay. With my library degree and with my gifted certification, I can teach K-12. So I could find myself in a place teaching kindergartners legally. Not in like a standalone classroom. Thank God. But
yeah.
Okay. Back to this. So
they're like, don't put this lady in here with all these kindergartners,
for
please.
Real. Well, thankfully.
You would be a really fun kindergarten teacher, though.
No, I would not. I would quit day 2. I would make it through day 1. Day 2, I don't know if I'd make it. No, thankfully, like, so for our district in GT, there's not a whole ton of GT teachers, and shockingly, not a lot of people want to teach middle school. So I'll stick where I'm at.
Middle schoolers are worse than 8-year-olds.
I don't know.
They're so annoying.
Yeah, but I like them. Because here's the trick.
I like my niece because she is
here's the
funny,
trick.
But most middle schoolers
I'm more
are not
annoying
like
than
her.
they are. I can out annoying them
Finally,
every day
some
of the
truth
week.
on this podcast.
Will you get out of here? No, that's the trick.
You are really,
I know.
really annoying. You're right.
I know.
It's right.
It's perfect. I am more annoying than they are. Problem solved.
I have been dealing with your annoying self for years, so I totally understand.
23 years.
I'm not even 23 years old.
Okay.
Just kidding. But yeah, 23 years of you being annoying. So here we are.
Anyways, so for students attending school in Kentucky, it's August through May. Our first day of school is August, like the first or second week of August. We get out usually before Memorial Day, end of May. This year it's the Friday before Memorial Day weekend that we're out of school. However, in our fiscal year, so my contract for the school year extends through June 30th. Our fiscal year switches over July 1. So, which is how they can tack on, it's not really tacked on. They can extend our contract past the last day of school because technically I'm on contract through June 30th because the fiscal year extends to June 30th, restarts July 1.
Yeah.
So July 1, all of the...
That's typical in education because we're state funded or
Right.
government funded, right?
For now. No, so that's, with the money too, like anytime it gets to the end of the year and we're like, okay, we have this much money left, we need to quick and put an order in before the money disappears. It's not actually what happens, but close. Or
no, we do the same.
I see that
typical in the private sector too.
Like, I see that you want that to order that thing, you're going to have to wait until next year's money rolls over July 1. So that's the fiscal.
That's really common.
So despite the fact that our school year and our calendar is different, our fiscal year is pretty the same. So here's the big bit. Scheduling. Here's what I want you all to figure out. How is a student's schedule determined? We're talking into the new school year. You're going to whatever, a new grade level, new schedule. How does that get decided? Who decides
I've
that?
heard
How do they
tales
decide it?
of a lot of conflict on this particular point.
Yeah, this is something that I've always been interested in because, like, this year, like, for my kid, so backtrack to last year, he got put into a class with all of his friends, like, his best friends, and it was, like, a crew of, like, his 5 best little friends, and they were in class together, and it was a great year. They had so much fun, they had a great teacher, and then this year, we got our school assignments, and I was like, what the heck, all of his friends were in a different class. And I was like, how does this get decided? Because he, like teacher, everybody knows that he's best friends with this group of kids. And he got singled out. Like, I felt really yucky about it. Like, because my kid was like, it felt like my kid was singled out. But, like, I know obviously he wasn't singled out. They were like, you got to get this kid in a different class because he's trouble. Because he's not trouble at all. He's not at all. He's a great kid. He's a great student. He's very, very smart. And so, but it's also interesting because this year, like, in their classes, our classroom is not having, like, any struggles, like, socially, not any, but, like, it's not that they're not having any, because obviously they're second graders, but like they're not having the social struggles that the other class is having. That like I was kind of pissed that my kid wasn't in that classroom, and now he's in this classroom, and they're not having social struggles, and they're really thriving, and they all get along really well, and it's a really good environment. And the other classroom is having major issues and really struggling, and a lot of the students are struggling, and it's kind of a shit show over there. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm glad that my kid, and we love his teacher. Yeah, we dodged a bullet there, and we love his teacher. And now he does have friends in that class. So like that was great. But I was like, why did my kid, out of all of these kids, get put into this class? So like, do teachers figure that out? Or are teachers like, put this kid in a different class? Or like, how does that work?
That was how you're supposed to guess. My guess is that they start with some sort of software that kind of takes everybody's history and like where their placements are into an account, and then like kind of puts a draft together. But then at some point there's some hand manipulation and taken into account in terms of like if you overload like one class, because it says like to fit everybody, to fit all the classes that they want to take, it means that you have to put 40 people into this one class. So then you have to have somebody go like, okay, well, which 10 people or whatever, we're going to tell them that they have to pick a different class or have to move them around or whatever, something like that to that effect.
So this is interesting. So we've got your answer is very high school versus Kelsey's is very elementary school, which neither one of them are wrong per se, but it's interesting that like there are more than one ways that this happened. So elementary, I'm the least familiar with, I'll be totally honest. I do know that part of it starts with test scores and services received. So in terms of staffing, there's only so many special education teachers in any given school district, and it's all depending on enrollment and student numbers. But students are grouped then that way so that, okay, we can't evenly divide up all of the students with IEPs, students with special needs, because we don't have enough teachers to put one in each of 4 classes. So we're going to put all of those kids in one class with, this is our regular ed teacher. We've got the special education teacher in there to meet the needs of those students.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because our school I think, from what I've gathered from my second grader telling me information, so could be completely inaccurate. But like, from what it sounds like there's 2 kids with an IEP in his class and 2 kids with an IEP in the other class.
So then that would just depend on, and then that could depend too in terms of the specifics of their IEPs in terms of services received and what it is like in terms of grouping. But that is a lot of it, especially once they get into.
I do have to say the 2 kids in the other class are a lot more extreme in like their. That's
pretty common. Yeah,
they're great kids, but they have more, more
they have
extreme
bigger needs. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times test scores are a factor too, especially it's easier to kind of group. It's easier to differentiate instruction when you're not trying to differentiate between like a kindergarten and a 5th grade level. It's easier to do when you're like trying to do like, oh, this class is mostly on a kindergarten 1st grade level versus this class is mostly on a 3rd, 4th grade level. And so a lot of the times when building classes, test scores will come into play. When you get to the high school, I'm going to do middle school last because it's where I've got the most right answers. High school, a lot of it has to do with where they are in their like course path, what classes they need to take, what electives they want to take, what classes they are required to take by law or by the needs of their schedules. And so a lot of that gets filled in that way. There's a lot more student choice when you get to the high school versus elementary is a lot more like teachers and like administrators are making the schedules. In high schools, it's mostly, students with admin in the background making sure it all works out schedule wise. In middle school, it's somewhere kind of in between. So I know from working with our counselors, because I'm in the weird department, the quote, outliers. They start with your high highs and your low lows. So they start building their schedule. They start with a master schedule. building out like what classes are being taught when. And they start with special education classes. And then, so special education, co-teach classes. They also do like the high level math and reading classes, the GT classes. And then they try to fit band around all of that too. That's kind of where they start, and everything else fills in. And so then in terms of what classes a student takes, starts with what they need to be in. Do they have to be in the high math class? Do they have a score high enough for that? Do they have to be in the high reading class? Are they wanting to take band? Do they need to be in a co-taught class for reading or whatever it may be? And so I know our counselors, there is a way to kind of auto-populate a master schedule. Our counselors go in and touch each individual student's schedule. They schedule 600 kids one at a time. And it's wild. Wow. And they're magicians. And I do not envy their job. And they, like, it's magical because I hand them.
That's why they work the summers.
Real, though. They also get paid. So side note, some positions like counselors get extended days, which is your contract is 187 days, but you get 10 extended days. Like you work 10 extra days, and there's some flexibility to that. A lot of it is in the summer for these scheduling things. And so then they spend all their time, like one of my counselors asked me Friday, so the last day of school before spring break, do you have your rosters done so we can start working on schedules? So it's March and they're working on next year's schedules already. Like they have the master schedule done already. They're working on actually like populating. And so then that's
like a full-time job.
It's massive. Like from now until between like state testing and scheduling for next year, like that's their whole job right now. It's wild. So I give them my rosters in terms of here's which of my students need to be in which of my classes based on what areas they're gifted in. So I already know kind of going in, and because I'm split between two schools, I make my own schedule. So I'm like, I'm going to be at this school, these periods based on numbers of students. I'm not just like, I've decided I don't want to work at 8 a.m. Like it's based on numbers and has to work with the school schedule. But I basically give them like, hey, here's the students I need rostered in which classes. Here's the class periods I'm going to be in this building today. For a regular classroom teacher, like assigned to one school, they might get their schedule before the end of the school year, which tells them like, first period you're teaching this class, second period you're teaching this class, your planning is fourth period or whatever it may be. But they also might not get those until July when the school year switches over. They will likely not get their rosters until closer to the end of July, and that's simply because of how long it takes to get all the students scheduled and make those rosters. Then even still, it might be day one of school, and day two you might have different rosters because things have happened day one to realize that, oh, this kid isn't supposed to be in this class. This kid needs to be somewhere else. Like it's ongoing. And then same thing for when you get your kind of outliers in terms of, oh, this student has now qualified for gifted services, so we need to change their schedule so that they're in this class. Or this student now has an IEP for, receiving special education services in math, so we need to change their schedule so that they're in this math class. Like it never stops. Like there are schedules changing all the time. And it gets crazier once you get into like middle and high school. Elementary is pretty consistent in terms of here's the class you're going to be in, barring something crazy, you're in there all year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if that answers all the questions about how the school calendar works and scheduling, but that's the long and short of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting to like think about different states. Obviously it varies from state to state, but it is interesting to think about like how they do take into consideration like each child and their needs. And I think like a lot of like normal people, like I would never necessarily know that because my kids are, they're
at the beginning of the year.
Right. Yeah. They do fine in school. Right. They don't need any extra help. And thankfully I'm blessed because I don't have that extra stress of it. I do have like some of Zeke is really great at making friends. And so like he has a lot of really, really good friends that that do need the IEP, which is really sweet. Like he's just such a sweet kid. And so he reaches out to like those kids, which is really, really sweet. And so I hear about it a lot But I'm like, how does this all come together? And I did ask his teacher, because I was like, I told her, like, I was really upfront. I was like, I feel like a little slighted that my kid is in a different teacher's class. His teacher is amazing, though.
Right.
Like, I would not have it any other way, because his teacher is so incredible. She's so great with them. And she very, like, politically correctly told me, like, we take everything into consideration. Like,
and sometimes,
okay.
and sometimes in elementary, like once you have your outliers figured out, sometimes it is a little bit like luck of the draw. Like, okay, we need these kids specifically in this class. We need these kids specifically in this class. And now we have 10 kids left over that we need to divvy up between the two. That could go anywhere. So sometimes it is just luck of the draw.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think a lot of, like, parents don't realize that, like, and I have a couple different mom group, like, chats who are, like, all of them are like, what's happening, or what's going on, or what's this, or how does this happen? And I'm like, I don't know. Honestly, like, I think a lot of it just, like, happened or
sometimes,
happens,
But sometimes, like, I know from the scheduling, from a teacher end, without, like, I've been a lot more involved in the scheduling bit now in terms of, like, my kids, the students that I teach are those outliers. And so I have to work a little bit closer with the schedule. But prior to that, like, as a teacher, I just get a list of kids. Here's the kids that are going to be in this class at this time. Okay, cool. So it's hard to know, like, how they ended up there specifically. And there's a lot more going on to it than...
Right. Yeah, it's not like they have, like, a huge big teacher meeting about it.
And it's hard to know. I'm like, well, why is this kid in my class this period? Well, because they can't be in this period because of this. They can't be in this period because of that. Like, there's a lot more going on than what shows up to you on day one.
Yeah. That makes sense. Cool. Wow. Well, that was also really enlightening. I feel like I learned a lot today.
Even if it wasn't on the
guys.
test.
It definitely, none of that was on the test, but I did learn a lot, and I would have failed the test. I would have failed at least Jake's test.
Same.
For sure. Kayla's I probably could have skirted by because I work in public education, so I could kind of figure out some of those things, but most of Jake's was definitely not on the test. Or I just didn't pay attention enough to realize that the Earth does not, it's not 365 trips around the Earth.
I took enough tests for all of you on all that stuff.
That's why we invited you.
Wonderful. Cool. Great. So
Topics for next time.
Okay, great. So, going into next week. Kayla, what are you giving Jake?
So I
for
have
next week.
Like 2 things written down for you. Both, like, relevant-ish to what we've been doing. Ish. So your 2 options. I'm going to give you 2 choices and you can decide what you want to do. So I thought we might backtrack to the particle physics and talk about the Higgs boson.
Okay.
Because we touched on that last time. And I wrote it down in my notes.
Which, can we talk about how that would be a great band name? Anyways,
also,
carry on.
So yesterday, I guess we were watching Oppenheimer. And so I would like a physics explanation of the atomic bomb. Where do you want to go with this?
Oh,
I know.
I'm gonna have to do a lot of research on both of those.
I know. What do you want to do?
You got to choose one.
Literally right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and we can put a pin in one and, like, come back to it at another time. But we're talking about right now. What do you want to do?
Let's do the Higgs boson.
The Higgs boson?
Yeah.
Okay.
Damn.
What were you hoping for atomic bomb?
Get ready for that atomic bomb.
Kelsey's about to drop.
Yeah, I want to know.
Okay.
I drop bombs every day.
God.
Kelsey and I had a secret meeting. No, actually, we didn't really meet. We just texted a little bit. But Kelsey came up with a good suggestion that I think is good. And
okay.
This is we wanted you to talk about social and emotional skills for students. And this is about, like, teachers having to not only teach the content that they're teaching, but also are relied on for, teaching the social and emotional skills to students at the same time, and how to teach them to develop interpersonal skills and stuff like that. So we thought that'd be interesting. Because there's a lot of, like, having teachers parent your kids.
I also think that you're, like, you're the perfect person to talk about it too, because I feel like you bring a totally different personality than most teachers into, like, the classroom.
You mean completely unhinged?
And I think that
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. Like you're kind of just, yeah. But you do like give like a little bit of a reality to these students who like, especially like in the like gifted and talented realm, like are probably in a lot of cases told they're weird.
Oh yeah.
Aren't taught social and emotional skills. So I think you're the perfect person to talk about this.
Full of weirdos. It's my favorite.
Mm-hmm. You have a house full of weirdos too. So great. Cool. Well, great. Thanks everybody for tuning in this week. I hope that you learned something. I feel like I learned a lot. I feel kind of stupid.
Take some time to process.
But here we are. I'm learning. That's all I need to. All I strive for every day is to just learn a little bit more. And so thanks for tuning in. And we hope that you come back next week to learn about Higgs boson and social and emotional skills with students.
Love it. Bye.
Bye.